Vectis Incarnon is one of the latest Incarnons added into the game, and it is in fact the first Incarnon Sniper rifle. This sniper rifle comes with 1 shot in normal mode, or 2 shots on the Prime, but when you switch it to Incarnon, you get 45 shots. Not only do you get more shots, the shots explode on headshot, 2/3 of a second later, causing damage in a massive AoE with a lot of cold procs attached to it. So just how good is this gun? I'm TheKengineer, let's solve a practical problem. Vectis Incarnon is all about the headshots. Even if you land a body shot, you do get some damage over time on the target, dealing 3 embed hits, 1 per second, but the main thing is if you hit the headshot. The headshot will only deal a single embed tick, the remaining 2 ticks are turned into 2 explosive hits, with a radius of 6.7 meters. Yes, DE chose to make it 6.7 meters. Don't blame me for that one. But let's have a look at the Incarnon Evolution perks. On Evolution 2, you have the choice of plus 200 damage on the base, with a channeled ability activating plus 2 punch through. The punch through might as well not exist. You could use it on the normal mode, absolutely, although normal mode already comes with punch through. Incarnon mode blocks you from using any punch through, even if you have it modded in or added through an evolution. Instead, the shot will always hit the target, whichever one you're facing at, and stick there. So the punch through bonus is something to ignore. As for the other option, Lone Enforcer, it increases the damage by only 150 rather than 200, but you get plus 25% multi-shot if no enemies are within 5 meters. As this is a percent increase, it is additive to multi-shot mods, and as a result, given that Galvanized Chamber is 2.3 multi-shot or 230%, this perk is very weak. So I always recommend going for Inciting Incident, get yourself the maximum damage bonus. On Evolution 3, you can either go for reload speed, weapon recoil, or silent running to make the gun, well, literally silent. Your enemies will never hear the shot again. The thing with these options is that you can mod in all of these options, and in different ways. Reload speed can be modded in, but only to 55% with a single mod, and it doesn't go into the Exodus slot. But these other 2 options, they can go into your Exodus modding. For the silencing of the weapon, that only takes 5 mod capacity, so it's very easy to put in, leaving the other 2 perks the more expensive ones to accommodate. Personally, I recommend going for the reduced weapon recoil. If you combine this with primary deadhead or another form of recoil reduction, you can have 0 recoil at all on your sniper rifle. If instead you go for the reload speed perk, you can maintain a fire rate with Vectis Prime that almost feels like the gun has infinite ammo, as every second shot you're reloading as quickly as you would chamber the next shot to fire with. Still, personally speaking, the reduced recoil is far more worth it, as rather than trying to spam shots at a single target, you'll often want to be relocating your aim to another headshot. Onto Evolution 4, your options are a slight increase to headshot damage. This is additive with the headshot damage bonus you get from primary deadhead. Or you can have critical parallel for more crit chance and more crit damage. These are base values and thus multiply with mods. Or lastly, Wiseman's Regard. This is a curious perk that will give you increased base status chance based on your critical chance of the weapon. The higher your critical chance, the higher the status chance benefits, and this multiplies with your status chance modding as well, allowing for some very high status chance results. There is currently a bug with Wiseman's Regard. If we have a look at the Vectis, and pop on down to the Incarnon mode, I currently have it set up for a modding of Blast Toxin. This is just for demonstration purposes. We can see the status chance on the damage hit, the direct hit as it's supposed to be, is 159.6%, but the status under this radial attack is only 84.8. But if I move the Toxin mod over, it changes to both of them 159.6. For some reason, if Blast is modded onto the Vectis Incarnon, this perk becomes 100 times weaker. And the difference we're seeing there is all of that status chance bonus coming from the critical chance just vanishing away. You'll notice if I swap this here and take off the critical delay, it only loses 0.5% of the status chance here, but loses about 50% on the damage mod. So until and unless that gets fixed, Blast seems to be a weaker choice for this. Everything else is enjoying a lot of status chance. As you might expect, that's not the only weirdness of the Vectis. Whilst we're looking at these stats as they are shown here, this is something I brought up with the Compressor Prime. Damage per S fall off. This is on a radial attack which already has a fall off stat listed, never mind the tooltip, it's using the wrong fall off tooltip. This shows that it deals up to 70% less damage at its maximum range, and we have the range listed here at 6.7 meters. So damage per S fall off is a stat that appears to do nothing. Beyond individual lines, the Incarnon form has 3 different types of hit. You have your direct hit, embed hit, and explosion hit. The embed and explosion have forced cold procs, and there is no mention of any forced procs anywhere on the Incarnon mode. When you shoot an enemy, either as a headshot or a body shot, the direct hit uses the radial damage stats. This means that the direct hit is actually more damaging than the arsenal would indicate. It's just using the wrong numbers. Despite using the radial attack numbers though, the direct hit is still able to headshot, and therefore is still able to get the critical headshot benefits as well. When you headshot or body shot an enemy, you'll then embed the shot into the Incarnon mode, and this will deal 1 or 3 ticks of damage, but instead of using the radial attack damage, it uses the direct damage stat for the embed. Despite using that damage up there, it does not get the benefits of headshots, so you will not get any 3 times damage multiplier for hitting on the head on most enemies, and you will not get critical headshot benefits. Lastly is the explosion damage. Despite the direct hit using radial, and the embed using direct damage, the explosion damage does in fact use the radial attack information. Sanity is restored as a radial attack, the explosion doesn't get the benefits of mods like Galvanized Aptitude, doesn't get the benefits of headshots, it is a proper explosion. Speaking of Galvanized Aptitude, this mod, like many of the others, when it comes to Incarnon weapons, does not work fully correctly. All of the damage bonus applied by the Incarnon perk on Evolution 2 is completely ignored by Galvanized Aptitude. So whether you're on the normal mode, or if you're on Incarnon mode, whether direct hit, embed, or explosion, Galvanized Aptitude will not benefit from that Incarnon bonus. It'll still scale from the innate damage of the attack modes, which for the damage stat is 25, and for the radial attack is a total of 150, and yet, even then it isn't consistent. Despite the fact that the embed damage will be using this damage block here, which has a base of 25 damage, Galvanized Aptitude only pays attention to the 150 of the so-called radial attack. So despite the fact that Galvanized Aptitude is only applying to a portion of the radial attack damage and then only on direct hit, it applies to a far greater portion when accounting for the embed damage. But overall, because it is less effective and additive in every single case that it applies, I recommend you just don't use that mod. It is not beneficial to you here. Instead, when it comes to modding for the Vectis, we want to have something that looks a little bit more like this. Here we are utilizing pretty much everything that snipers can bring to bear for maximum results. That includes using max stealth multi-shot, we are using galvanized scope to get all of the crits that we can manage, semi-rifle cannonade because we don't care about fire rate, it's a sniper. The idea is to one-shot enemies and move on to the next one. We also have very standard mods of vital sense and critical delay for our critical chance and critical damage, scaling further with the critical chance we've got from galvanized scope. 2 elemental mods, mix and match to your heart's content on that, although again remember, Blast is currently bugged with the status perk evolution, and finally, Primed Chamber. If you can't afford Primed Chamber, Bladed Rounds is fine, but Primed Chamber is the stronger one because of how it works with the Incarnon mode. Primed Chamber gives you plus 100% damage on the first shot in a magazine, but that's not quite true. What it does is it gives you plus 100% damage so long as your magazine has dropped down to 1 below maximum when the hit lands. For the normal Vectis, every single shot you fire takes you from 1 magazine to 0 magazine, so you are always 1 below the maximum when the shot lands, and then you reload. For Vectis Prime, you have 2 shots by standard, so the first shot will take you from 2 to 1, Prime Chamber applies. The second shot takes you from 1 to 0, Prime Chamber is no longer active. But when switching to Incarnon form, you don't change the magazine of the normal mode. So long as you have fired 1 shot out of the Vectis Prime, or no shots at all out of the normal Vectis when you switch to Incarnon mode, Prime Chamber is active for the entire Incarnon mode. Lastly on the end, Primary Deadhead is amazing for sniper rifles, it is pretty much designed for them, especially with the recoil reduction and headshot multiplier. And then Hush is good for more tactical stealth gameplay, but is not strictly necessary. If you wish to use yet another form on the Vectis Prime, you can instead put a recoil reduction here, and that'll allow you to switch over to the reload speed perk on the Vectis Incarnon. If you do use the status chance from crit chance perk on the Vectis Incarnon, I highly recommend switching your elemental mods for the 60-60 variants, for that over double status chance increase. In particular, this works really well with gas to give you very consistent, very high damage gas clouds. If you combine that with, for example, Lavos and his high duration stat turning into high status duration, you'll get some incredibly lethal gas clouds that linger for a very long time. Other Warframes can use it as well, they're just not as powerful as Lavos. Now I know you might be wondering about an Acuity build. Primary Acuity seems like it is designed for sniper rifles, or with the weak point damage and weak point critical chance. The downsides are multiple. Not only does it block you from modding for multi-shot, which is a big multiplier to both status output and to damage output, these only apply on weak points and then don't apply as the mod suggests. The weak point critical chance is additive to the critical chance of other mods, and we have plenty of those available to us, so it's not that impressive. And the weak point damage doesn't increase your damage by 350% because of how it works with the damage stats built into enemies. Most enemies will only take plus 175% damage as a result of this mod. So when we consider the negatives of not being able to use multi-shot, and we consider the lesser positives because of how this mod works, you don't end up with as much of a damage bonus as you would anticipate. The final nail in the coffin to show that whilst you can use this setup, it isn't all that great for you, is because of course the Vectis Incarnon has that radial attack on headshot. All of those damage bonuses which are focused on weak points will not apply to the explosion. So your main target will go from being one shot to even more one shot, but all the targets around them, you may lose the ability to kill them outright with this. Overall, the Vectis Incarnon is a very effective sniper rifle to use, able to clear groups of enemies with ease. It does lose some of the extra long range capability due to the travel speed on its projectile, but outside of fighting, on the plains of Eidolon or other large open world maps, you will find no issue in clearing out every single target you aim at the headshot on. For enemies without headshots, well, that's why we're not using Acuity. As you can probably tell from the pacing and editing of this video, I'm trying out a different approach when covering relatively basic weapons like the Vectis here, so you can still get the information without it needing to be some crazy high edited script. Let me know, has this given you everything you are looking for on the Vectis? Pop your thoughts down in the comments. That's all from me for now, so as always, hit the head, knock 'em dead, and fight well, Tenno.